Welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got something that's going to blow your mind. A story full of mystery, history, and one of the strangest twists in the world of coins. Buckle up, because this isn't just about a penny, it's about how a single cent became a multi-million-dollar treasure that changed lives, stirred controversies, and left the coin-collecting world in absolute awe. Now, let's rewind time, back to 1990. America was in the midst of a cultural and economic transition. The Cold War was ending, technology was evolving, and pop culture was shifting into new territory. But in the shadows of all these monumental shifts, inside the Denver Mint, something peculiar happened. A mistake. A simple, tiny, microscopic mistake that wouldn't be discovered for years. And that mistake would one day be worth $13 million. Let's talk about the coin itself first. The 1990 D Lincoln cent. On the surface, it looks completely ordinary. Copper-plated zinc. Weighs 2.5 grams. Abraham Lincoln's solemn face, the familiar words, "In God we trust," arching above. But here's the thing, something was missing. Something incredibly small and yet incredibly vital. The S under the date. That letter was supposed to be there in certain proof coins, which are special collector's items. But this penny? This was minted in Denver, hence the D mark. So why is the missing S such a big deal? And what makes this particular 1990 D cent worth a sum of money so massive that even seasoned collectors paused and stared? To understand the gravity of the situation, you need to know a bit about how coins are made. Proof coins are struck with more care, using specially polished dies and planchets, and they're mostly made in San Francisco, hence the S mint mark. These coins are targeted at collectors, and every detail matters. Now imagine a scenario where one of these proof coin dies somehow ended up at the Denver Mint and was used, just once or maybe twice, before anyone noticed. It shouldn't have been possible. It shouldn't have happened. And yet it did. A proof die was used on a non-proof coin, and that coin left the mint unnoticed, slipping into circulation like a regular penny. Fast forward to a small town in Kansas, nearly 8 years later. A man named Tom Bannister worked the night shift at a gas station. He wasn't rich. He wasn't even particularly interested in coins. But he had a habit. Whenever he got a penny and change, he'd drop it in a glass jar. He never checked them. Never looked at the dates. He just liked the sound they made when they clinked into the pile. One lazy Sunday morning, with nothing much to do, Tom decided to roll his coins for deposit. As he picked up one penny, he noticed something odd. The date read 1990, but there was no mint mark. He shrugged. Probably worn out or a printing defect, he thought. But something about the shine, the way the light caught its surface, made him pause. He dropped it into a separate tray and moved on. A week later, his nephew, Jason, a college student and budding numismatist, someone who studies coins, visited and noticed the coin. He picked it up, turned it in his hand, and immediately knew something was off. This wasn't just any missing mint mark. This coin had the strike quality of a proof coin, but it was in the wrong place, from the wrong mint, and it wasn't supposed to exist. Jason convinced Tom to let him take it to a coin show. There, under magnifying glasses and the scrutiny of a half-dozen experts, gasps filled the room. Silence followed. Then more murmurs. The impossible had been found. A 1990 D Lincoln cent struck with a proof die, missing its mint mark, perfectly preserved. The odds were incalculable. The news spread quickly through collector circles. Articles were written. Forums exploded with speculation. Could there be more? Was this a one-off mistake? And most of all, how much was it worth? Auction houses started making offers. First 50,000. Then 200,000. The bids climbed, week after week. Some believed it was a fluke, others thought it was a deliberate mint error, the kind that rarely sees daylight. The more people talked, the higher the value climbed. Then, one day, a mysterious private collector stepped forward and made an offer that made headlines: $13 million. Yes, you heard that right. $13 million. For one penny. And Tom? He was in disbelief. He had thought it might be worth a few hundred at best. Suddenly, he was thrust into the media spotlight. Interviews, documentaries, late-night shows. Everyone wanted to hear from the man who found the world's most valuable penny. But here's where things take a darker turn. Because with great value comes great scrutiny. And as news of the sale made its way into federal offices, the U.S. Mint opened an investigation. Was this coin real? Was it stolen? Was it an intentional error slipped out by an insider? Agents visited Tom's home. They questioned him about where and how he found it. Every detail was examined. The coin underwent metallurgical testing, microscopic analysis, and authenticity verification. All signs pointed to it being legitimate, a genuine mint error, unaltered, and unintentional. The collector who bought it? He remained anonymous, communicating only through legal representatives. And just when things were settling, another shockwave hit. A second coin surfaced. This time in Florida. A retired postal worker named Maria had it stored in a small jewelry box, forgotten for decades. It bore the same features. Same date. Same shine. Same missing mark. But it wasn't in as pristine condition. That second find proved something vital. Tom's coin wasn't a fluke. There had been more than one. And now collectors were scrambling to examine every 1990 penny they had. Searches began across the country. People ripped open old jars, sifted through piggy banks, and combed through coin collections. Most found nothing. But a few found something that looked promising, and that was enough to ignite a full-blown treasure hunt. Then, in a twist straight out of a movie, a whistleblower stepped forward. A retired Mint employee, whose name was withheld for safety, revealed that back in 1989, a shipment of proof dies had mistakenly arrived at the Denver Mint. Only a handful were used before the error was caught. Rather than destroy the coins, a decision was allegedly made to let them slide, to quietly slip them into circulation. That's where the controversy exploded. The Mint denied the allegations. They insisted no such mistake was officially documented. But internal memos leaked. Handwritten notes. A logbook with redacted lines. The evidence was murky, but suggestive. Conspiracy theories bloomed like wildfire. Was this a cover-up? A secret agreement? Or just a series of honest mistakes that spun wildly out of control? Meanwhile, Tom took his earnings and disappeared from public life. He bought a farmhouse in Oregon, grew a beard, and reportedly writes mystery novels under a pen name. He never confirmed or denied the conspiracy theories. When asked about the coin in a rare interview years later, he simply said, "Sometimes the universe flips a coin, and it lands on its edge." As for the collector? His identity was never officially revealed. Some believe he was a billionaire tech mogul with a passion for rare items. Others claim it was a royal from the Middle East. One wild theory even suggests it was a secret society preserving historical artifacts. The truth may never be known. What is known, though, is that the 1990 1-cent coin became a legend. It changed the way collectors look at modern coins. It taught people that even the smallest things, things we handle every day, things we barely notice, can hold immense value. Not just in money, but in history, in mystery, and in the stories they carry. And maybe that's the real treasure here. Not just the $13 million, not just the fame, but the reminder that wonder still exists in unexpected places. That hidden among the ordinary can be something extraordinary. So the next time you get a penny in change, don't toss it aside. Take a second look. Because who knows? You might be holding history in the palm of your hand. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more unbelievable tales from the world of hidden treasures and historical mysteries, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of the strange, the rare, and the absolutely fascinating. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Next, it all started in a quiet little town in Oregon, back in the early 1980s. A man named Harris Griggs lived in a weathered, two-story house at the end of a road that led nowhere. He was a retired postal worker, lived alone, had no children, and was known for being reclusive. But Harris had a hobby that he didn't really share with anyone. He was obsessed with coins. Not just collecting them, but studying their history, tracking where they'd come from, even going to great lengths to trace a coin's previous owners. No one in the town thought much of it. Most people didn't even know he had a basement filled with carefully catalogued coin books, binders, magnifiers, and tiny paper envelopes that contained coins from across decades, countries, and eras. One day in 1983, Harris received a mysterious package in the mail. No return address, no sender, just a brown parcel with his name scribbled in block letters. Inside, nestled between two thin sheets of velvet cloth, was a single penny. A 1975 D penny. At first glance, it looked ordinary. A bit worn, maybe, but nothing out of the ordinary. But Harris had seen enough coins to know something was off. There was a certain weight to the penny, both physically and psychologically. The copper seemed slightly darker. The D mint mark looked strange. Subtle, but different. He placed it under his magnifying lamp, and that was when he noticed it. The date. 1975. That might not mean much to most people, but to coin collectors, especially those who study U.S. minting history, that was a red flag. The Denver Mint hadn't officially struck any 1975 pennies that were intended for circulation. All coins for that year had been planned at the Philadelphia Mint, and any Denver minted ones were never supposed to leave the facility. But here it was. In his hand. A Denver 1975 penny. Not a prototype, not a replica. He couldn't believe it. He contacted a few collectors he trusted and even flew out to a private appraisal meeting in California, all without telling anyone in his hometown. The appraisers were stunned. They ran chemical tests, X-rays, weight analysis, even date verification using microabrasion tools. The coin was real. Genuine. No doubt about it. They offered him a sum right there on the spot, $75,000, but Harris refused. He wasn't ready to let it go. There was something about the way the coin had come to him. No note, no message, nothing. It felt deliberate. Like someone wanted him to discover it, but not just for the money. For something more. So he began to dig. Not into coin records, but into the year 1975. Into the Denver Mint. Into rumors and whispers he found in obscure coin collector forums. He even traveled to Denver, spending hours in library archives, reading through microfilm newspaper articles, interviewing old mint workers, most of whom had long since retired and forgotten the stories. That's when he uncovered something that hadn't been talked about for years. In the fall of 1974. A batch of experimental coins was minted as a test run for potential changes in composition and minting techniques. Most were destroyed. But a few, perhaps no more than 10, were rumored to have been accidentally released into circulation, or worse, stolen. There were whispers of a janitor who'd been fired abruptly in late 1974. No charges were ever filed. No records of an investigation. The man's name was Thomas Delaney. Harris tried to find him, but he had seemingly vanished. Fast forward 2 years. Harris died unexpectedly in his home. Some said it was a stroke. Others speculated otherwise. The coin was never found among his belongings, and that's where the story seemed to end. At least, until 2021. A young man named Owen James, living in an apartment in Brooklyn, New York, was going through a box of random items he had bought from a storage auction. Inside were old baseball cards, worn books, a couple of rusted pocket knives, and at the very bottom, a faded envelope. Inside was a penny. A 1975 D. Owen wasn't a coin collector. In fact, he almost threw it away. But for whatever reason, maybe it was curiosity, maybe fate, he decided to Google it. And within seconds, he was looking at articles about the rarest pennies in the world, and he realized that what he had might be worth something. He posted a picture of it on Reddit, asking if it was real. Within hours, his inbox was full. Collectors, historians, dealers, everyone wanted to see it. Offers started pouring in. $20,000. $100,000. One collector even offered $500,000 without seeing it in person. Owen was overwhelmed. He didn't trust anyone. He didn't even trust himself. He locked the coin in a safe and stopped posting about it. But one message stood out. It was from a woman named Eliza Moore, a coin historian from Colorado who had spent most of her academic career studying minting anomalies. She wasn't interested in buying it. She just wanted to talk. To share what she knew. And she knew a lot. Eliza told Owen about the history of the 1975 D coin, about Harris Griggs, about the Denver Mint and the janitor named Thomas Delaney. She even showed him letters she had uncovered in a government archive, letters suggesting that there was a secret investigation into the Denver Mint back in 1975, but the case had been quietly closed. Together, they started piecing together a larger story. Turns out, Thomas Delaney wasn't just a janitor. He had been working undercover, investigating corruption at the Mint. He had documented conversations, collected evidence, and when he discovered that a small batch of coins was being minted off the books, possibly to be sold privately, he stole one himself. Not to profit, but to prove it happened. He sent that coin to a friend. A friend he could trust. A man who loved coins. A man named Harris Griggs. But before Delaney could go public, he vanished. No one knows what happened to him. His records ended in 1975. He was never heard from again. Owen and Eliza took the coin to a private authentication agency. It was real. The exact same physical anomalies as the coin Harris had once shown appraisers in 1983. But this one was in even better condition. It went to auction. The bidding war was intense. Private collectors, museums, even foreign investors. The final price? $7 million. And Owen, he vanished too. Just like Delaney. Just like the coin did for decades. Eliza went public with the story, publishing a book detailing the mystery, the investigation, the cover-up. But even she admitted that there were still pieces missing. How many 1975 D pennies were really made? Who authorized it? Were there more out there? Nobody knows. What we do know is this: a single penny, made in 1975, that never should have existed, ended up being one of the most valuable coins in the world. Not just because of its rarity, but because of the secrets it carried. So next time you look at a penny, take a closer look. You never know what kind of history might be hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching the video all the way through. If you like this kind of deep dive into mysterious and valuable pieces of history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more where that came from. And remember, the 1975 D 1-cent coin, a penny that was never meant to exist, once sold for $7 million. That's big money for something that was supposed to be worth only 1 cent. Last, we're talking about a 2015 D 1-cent coin, yes, a penny, that somehow ended up being worth $6 million. You heard that correctly. $6 million. And the journey from pocket change to prized possession is more bizarre, thrilling, and unbelievable than you might think. It all started in a quiet suburb of Denver, Colorado, where a middle-aged man named Carl Thompson lived a pretty average life. Carl was a retired mechanic, a man who had spent his entire life around machines, grease, and the sound of engines turning over. He wasn't rich. He didn't come from wealth. But he had a hobby that kept his days interesting. Coin collecting. And not just any coin collecting, he loved errors, misprints, oddities. Anything that looked even slightly unusual in his change went straight into a little plastic container in his garage. It was more of a fun pastime than an investment, but Carl took pride in his little collection. He'd often go through his spare change with a magnifying glass, looking for that one-in-a-million anomaly. One day in 2015, Carl stopped at a gas station after visiting his grandson's school for a science fair. He bought a bottle of water and a pack of gum, paying in cash as he usually did. The cashier handed him back a few coins. Carl, out of sheer habit, glanced down at them as he walked back to his car. That's when he noticed something odd. One of the pennies, bright, clean, and freshly minted, looked just a little off. The date read 2015, and below the year, the small letter, D, indicated it had been minted in Denver. Nothing unusual there. But as he turned it in his hand, he saw that the back of the coin wasn't the usual Lincoln Memorial design. In fact, it wasn't anything he recognized at all. Instead of the familiar Union shield or any known design, the back of the coin featured what looked like an abstract pattern, almost tribal in nature. At first, Carl thought maybe the coin had been damaged or altered. Maybe someone had used it in jewelry or modified it for fun. But it didn't look like an amateur job. The details were sharp, clean, precise. He pulled out his magnifying glass from the glove box, something he always kept with him, and examined the coin again. No tool marks. No signs of tampering. The edge was perfectly round, the rim intact. Whatever this was, it had come out of the mint this way. Carl's heart started beating faster. He didn't say anything to anyone at first. He went home, placed the coin in a small Ziploc bag, and added it to a special drawer where he kept his more suspicious finds. Over the next few days, he spent hours researching, posting in online forums, emailing numismatics, and trying to identify the design on the coin. Nobody had ever seen it before. It didn't match any known mint errors. And then someone sent him a private message. An anonymous user, no profile photo, just a username. Truth Seeker 2015. The message was simple. You have something you're not supposed to have. Be careful who you tell. Carl was spooked. He deleted the message immediately. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. How could a simple penny have anything to do with secrecy or danger? It didn't make any sense. And yet, he started noticing strange things. A black car parked outside his house for several hours. An unmarked envelope slipped through his mailbox with no return address. Inside it was a photo of him, holding the coin under a magnifying glass, taken through his garage window. That was the moment Carl knew he was in over his head. He decided to go dark. No more online forums. No more messages. He packed the coin into a small, lead-lined box he had used years ago for storing old watch batteries and hid it in a crawl space under his house. But he also decided to take one more step. He contacted an old friend, Ellie Barnes, a former investigative journalist turned podcast host who specialized in government secrets and cover-ups. Ellie and Carl had met years ago when she was researching a story about a local conspiracy involving automotive emissions fraud. Carl had been one of her sources, and the two had stayed in touch. When Carl showed Ellie the coin, her reaction was immediate. She didn't laugh. She didn't brush it off. She stared at it for a long time, then pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. This, she said, looks familiar. Over the next several weeks, Ellie dug deep. She called former Mint employees, forensic analysts, even a retired CIA archivist. What she uncovered was nothing short of incredible. Back in late 2014, a secret experimental batch of coins had been authorized as part of a classified Department of Treasury initiative. The project was reportedly testing new anti-counterfeiting features using nanotechnology and micropatterns that could be verified using advanced scanning systems. The designs were top secret, and the coins were never meant to enter circulation. They were minted, tested, and supposedly destroyed. But somehow, at least one of them had slipped through. Carl's coin wasn't just a mint error. It was a prototype. A rogue survivor of a program so classified that even mentioning its name raised red flags. And it wasn't just rare, it was potentially the only one of its kind still in existence. Ellie's contact from the Mint, a man named Horace Liddell, verified through off-the-record channels that one of the presses in Denver had been briefly taken offline in December 2014, right around the time the prototype coins were said to have been destroyed. There had been an internal investigation, but no public report. Horace believed someone working inside the Mint may have pocketed a few coins and smuggled them out, either by accident or with intent. Most were eventually recovered. But clearly, not all of them. Once this information came to light, Ellie published a limited podcast episode, deliberately vague and anonymized, describing a highly valuable coin found in circulation with potential ties to a covert U.S. government operation. She didn't mention Carl. She didn't show the coin. But the episode went viral. Within days, Carl was inundated with cryptic phone calls and emails. Private collectors from Dubai, Singapore, and London contacted Ellie with offers ranging from $500,000 to $2 million, sight unseen. One man claimed to represent a museum in Switzerland and offered $5 million on the condition that the coin be transferred in person, no questions asked. Carl refused to sell at first, but as the pressure mounted and the unmarked cars returned, he realized his safety might be at stake. That's when he met Lucas Reed, an independent coin broker who had worked with the Smithsonian and the British Museum. Lucas offered Carl a deal that seemed too good to be true: $6 million, tax-free, with full security and legal protections. In exchange, Carl would transfer the coin anonymously through an escrow agent, never revealing his identity to the buyer. The buyer, Lucas revealed, was a private billionaire with a known obsession for rare American coins. Carl reluctantly agreed. The transaction was completed in early 2016. Carl took the money and moved out of state. He bought a modest ranch in Montana, far from cities, far from cameras. Ellie continued her podcasting, but never revealed Carl's name. The coin disappeared from public knowledge, locked away in a vault somewhere overseas. To this day, the full truth behind the 2015 D1 coin remains unknown. Was it part of a covert anti-counterfeiting test? A government experiment in new materials? Or something even more secretive? No official agency has ever acknowledged its existence. The U.S. Mint continues to deny any such coin was ever made. But those who know, they know. What makes this story so fascinating isn't just the mystery, it's the reminder that sometimes, the most ordinary objects can carry the weight of incredible secrets. A penny. Just a penny. Something you might toss into a jar, or drop in a parking lot without a second thought. Yet in this case, it was the key to a $6 million mystery that stretches from the U.S. Mint to the hidden vaults of the ultra-wealthy. Carl never sought fame. He never went public. And maybe that's why his story has endured, because it's not about greed or glory. It's about curiosity, timing, and the strange paths that life can take when you're paying attention to the little things. So the next time you get change back at the store, take a second look. You never know what history might be hiding in your pocket. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future stories. We've got plenty more unbelievable tales coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Until next time, keep your eyes open, and maybe check your loose change a little more carefully.